What's going on to all my Outer Range fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down this sixth episode, which was titled The Family, an episode that really focuses on the best and the worst of what family can do to our characters. We see Royal threatens Autumn, and in exchange, she manipulates someone close to him. We're going to be discussing that and so much more, all in this spoiler breakdown. Before we get into today's discussion, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel and love early movie reviews, TV breakdowns, and live streams, well, come and join the community today by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. As you all can see on the screen now, if you enjoy what I had to say about this sixth episode of Outer Range, make sure you're liking this review as well as sharing it. But speaking of sharing, go ahead and share your thoughts on this sixth episode in the comments below. Deeper meanings, favorite moments, least favorite moments, and of course your thoughts and theories and everything in between in the comments below. So just a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, go check out my episode 5 review, in which I had some pretty crazy theories that I shared in that video, so check it out. I'm gonna leave it on the screen now or in the description of this video. But we are here to discuss this incredible sixth episode, which really highlights the best and worst of our characters when it comes to what they're willing to do for their family. So let's get into it. Full spoilers ahead. We open the episode with Royal coming across Autumn by the void, and Imogen Poots, I'm gonna say it right now, she was the MVP for me in this episode. She was fantastic as she looks at Royal very creepily and says, "What, do you want to push me in the void?" And no, he's not there to do that, at least for right now. He wants to give her back her necklace. So go ahead and get on with this four-wheeler with me and let's go back to your camp. But he has other plans for Autumn's character as he is now on this four-wheeler, and you talk about Mad Max Fury Road or Fast and Furious. He is riding with vengeance, trying to really put the fear in her as she ultimately jumps off the four-wheeler. And I want you all to pay attention to the dialogue that we get in this scene as we see Royal continues to lie about what he discovered, and Autumn does not believe him, and she knows that this is all connected to time, as she is beyond excited about the possibilities of this void as Royal yells at her and repeats that his family won't understand and that she should stay away from them or else he will kill her. And again, I want you all to pay attention to that dialogue because notice how emotional Royal got in that moment. And we haven't really seen that much emotion from him in regards to feeling vulnerable, in regards to, again, listen to what he said. Don't come near my family. They won't understand. It's almost as if he has maybe explained this to them in another timeline, in another universe of a sense, and it didn't work out for him, right? So it's very important that he says that, and he got emotional while saying that. I could be completely wrong, but it almost feels like Royal has lived this before, and it's maybe muscle memory or things are kind of coming back. And if you saw my last review, I feel like we're watching multiple versions of the same situation with slight alterations. So I feel like, you know, if you all have seen Everywhere, Everything, All at Once, like they're all somehow connected, but there's some disruption within a timeline. And I think we're starting to see some of that alternative stuff going on here. Again, wild theory, but let me know you guys' thoughts on that comment that Royal had for her. And going back into the actual scene, I find it very interesting again that we see Royal going back and showing his vengeance. He goes back to her camp and burns it all down. Her medicines, her drawings, everything she had is now burnt to the ground. Royal ain't playing around. And again, I don't think he's bluffing when he says that if she, ultimately what she ends up does, telling Perry, we might see her going down that void, which would be very interesting to learn where she would go if she gets pushed in there. Let's talk about that in the comments section. As we move on to Joy is now convinced that Perry and the Abbotts are responsible for the death of Trevor, and that she is just so convinced that even though the report has, and we know what's going on with the report and the time and everything that happened to Trevor, but she's like, she tells Kirkland, who I believe is probably like a judge or some, you know, the governor or the mayor or what have you. He's like, okay, well, what's the evidence, right? And she says the only thing that's kind of stuck in this this particular case is I can't prove the time doesn't really make sense. He says, come on, Joy. You're not the only one going up for election. I have an election coming up here, so I suggest that you drop this case. And we all know when it comes to good shows and good movies, a good deputy or police officer, they can't let those cases go. So we're going to kind of see Joy continue to obsess over this case, which again, the whole theme of this episode is family. How much is she willing to sacrifice in order to figure out this case? Is it her family herself, which we're going to get into here a bit? Again, Joy, she's determined to figure out everything in this case. But going back into the conversation, this moment to me explains this episode perfectly. As we get the return of little Amy, who was absent in the last episode, she asks her dad, Perry, why is it that families keep secrets from one another? And he responds, as most adults would say to their kids, well, honey, it's to protect those that they love. They feel like they're keeping them safe from their particular secrets that might hurt them. And I love the delivery by Amy as she says, well, not knowing hurts just as much. And we'll talk about her learning the truth and physically getting hurt, which we'll talk about at the end of this review. But I really thought that scene perfectly summarizes the importance of family and the theme of family and what family can do when they lie, when they tell the truth, and everything in between. Very perfect, short scene, but very perfect scene to explain the thesis of this particular episode. Getting back into it, what does family mean? Well, will you stand up for them? As we see that Joy is going to get more involved with the community and with the election coming up. So her and her wife and her family attend the church, and this is where Deacon Frank needs to go ahead and then just retire, because he is having this, as he calls it, a very special prayer in regards to his maybe personal opinions on same-sex marriage, or should I say, as he blames it on the Bible's opinion on same-sex marriage in regards to a prayer on this family. I'm like, Deacon, and you even see the minister, he's like, okay, yeah, we need to go ahead and sit down. Someone get Deacon Frank something or some coffee and go sit in the back room, because this is not what we believe in. But I think it's important to note that, again, I'm really putting the emphasis on family, and we see what that meant to Marcia, which is the wife of Joy. She doesn't speak up for her, right? And going back to, will you stand up for your family? Will you stand up for those that you love? And we see example of Joy not displaying that. She's kind of the most, morally speaking, the most straightforward, narrow character, but even that character has their flaws when it comes to what she's doing or not willing to do for her whole family. So I really enjoyed that scene there, going back to the narrative, into the conversation. But let's check in with what's going on with Cecilia in this episode, where she is continually dealing with her conflict and her relationship with God as they're doing communion, the blood and the body in Christ. And she looks at Royal as he's drinking the blood, and she can't do it because she knows, and again, not being a super religious person myself, but she doesn't feel like she's being herself. She doesn't feel like she's worthy of the body of Christ because she's holding this sin, which is, she obviously didn't kill Trevor, but she is keeping this lie from everyone in town. So she's really at conflict with herself, and she does something pretty weird in this episode that we'll discuss. But getting into lies and everything going on, let's talk about the body. And speaking of the body, Autumn has an out-of-body experience when she encounters a bear. And I was thinking that this was going to be Leonardo DiCaprio, the Revenant, and that bear is going to tear her apart. But that doesn't happen. But instead what happens is she comes face to face with this bear, and she says to it, yellow. And I might be wrong, but I interpreted the bear said back to her, you have to show him. I could be wrong. It could have been just nature or just her inner head or her other person, another timeline, Autumn, or maybe little Amy telling her to show him, because we know what that means a little bit later. But the importance of yellow. We talked about this in my review in episode 5 when we saw her in the future scene. She was wearing yellow, and we've seen the future Amy wearing yellow throughout the previous, fast forward future scenes. So yellow has some type of significance. Looking up yellow is in regards to what it symbolizes. Yellow symbolizes happiness, warmth, and sunshine. But again, is she really happy? Is she really warmth? What is the significance of that yellow? And also, was that bear talking to her? I could be misinterpreting that scene, but let me know how you all took it all in. As we're getting back into the conversation with family, will you lie for them? As we cut to Marie, who wants to have Rhett be a part of her life, but she can't because she can clearly see he's lying and covering up for his family. And I talked about it in the previous review in regards to, I think, the significance of this particular love romance right now between Rhett and Marie is going to lead down to, he's going to have to choose, do I continue to lie for my family, or do I choose this person that I'm in love with and I want to create a family with? I think that's going to be the big conflict with Rhett. And we see ultimately, when it comes to protecting his family, the lie is no longer a lie after what Perry does a little bit later. But let me know where you all are hoping that they take that Marie and Rhett storyline. And if you're enjoying it so far, let's discuss that in the comments section as we go back to the theme of family. Do they really know, and do you know who they really are? As we check in with Luke and Patricia, who find out more information about Wayne's will, which is revealed that it's not in Luke's name, it's not in Patricia's name, it's in Billy's name. And we know that Billy doesn't seem to be the most, leader of the family type of characteristics that we've gotten from him so far. He can sing his ass off, but I don't think he can lead this family into the promised land. And we see the conversation kind of at hand here is Patricia, she's going back to Aspen for a few days, and not to make it a big deal, because I know parents kiss their kids in their mouths or whatnot when they're kids, but when they're adults, that seems a little bit strange to me. I'm not saying that there's like incest going on between the two, but I don't know. There seems to be a lot more of a connection between Patricia and Luke. Again, I might be looking too much into that. Let me know how you all took in that scene with the mother kissing her son in the mouth. Again, it's just love. I might be looking too much into it, but they seem to be more connected than her and Billy. Let me know your thoughts on that relationship there, which, speaking of Billy, he is out to hunt for his father, and this is where he runs into Autumn, who wants to show him something, and she gets into telling him the story about an astrologer, and her words puts Billy in like this trance-like state. They're like different colors, and it's like very psychedelic, and they're in the grass, and she's talking about this particular story, and kind of the meat and potatoes of the story that she tells him here is, how do you expect to know what's in the heavens if you can't see what's at your feet? Which ultimately she leads him to the void, and it goes back to when she had that conversation with the Paddington bear or the Revenant bear. Show him, and she showed him, and now again, is that some way connected to another universe? How are the creatures? Because we know so far there seems to be a big theme involving the animals in this show, whether it's the animals that Wayne has killed, whether it's the prehistoric animals that have been seen in Wyoming. There's a significance about the animals, and the animals being able to communicate with someone like Autumn seems to be very important to me. Let me know where you all's head are at involving the animals and Billy now coming across this void and what that can mean for his family. Let's discuss that in the comment section. But getting back into it, Frito Carl makes his return, but this might be Frito Carl's last return, because he is driving on the road, always eating, always drinking something, but he takes his eyes off the road and he comes across, I believe that's the same buffalo that we've seen in the previous episodes. He tries to avoid and to hit it, and I don't know if he's dead. I assume he's probably, if he's not dead, he's probably going to be pretty in bad shape in this car accident, because that didn't seem to be the most safe car for someone like Frito Carl. But I started to think about it. Okay, this buffalo, man, it keeps coming up, randomly popping out the show, but it almost seemed that was like very purposeful. It's almost as if Royal or someone in the Abbott family made that buffalo go right there on purpose, because you have to remember their court case is coming up sooner rather than later. So it's almost seemed like that buffalo was there to hurt or kill Carl. Let me know what you all think about that. But going back into it, meanwhile, we see Cecilia with her cub experiment. Now, I'm very confused with the scene. Now, just to kind of recap the scene, we see that she's in the cabin or the shed. She lets the cub bite her, which we'll talk about here in a second. But we see Royal checks in on her, and he pretty much tells her, I need you. You're my guidance through these dark times. I really lean on you during these dark times. So, which is a sweet moment between the two, because he's been really shutting her out recently, especially with all these secrets going on. But let's go back into the future, or to say in the past, and talk about this scene. She puts her hand in the dead cub's mouth and bites down on it, leaving a mark on her hand. The only thing that makes sense to me is that this is some type of form of punishment for the lies and not taking on communion and all the stuff that she's going through with her relationship with God. That's the only thing I'm coming up with. Help me out in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. What did you all take in with that scene? What was the significance of the bite mark of the cub? Let's talk about that in the comment section. Getting back into the conversation, back in with Autumn, she discovers what Royal has done to her belongings, including what she did with her medicine. She's on the phone talking to someone, very aggressively. And she's like, oh, your job is to just give me, stop asking all these questions. Your job is just give me the money when I need it. She gets some type of generic medicine. She doesn't get the right medicine that she needs, which again, it's important to note that when she doesn't take her medicine, it prevents, from her getting seizures, but also her bipolar disorder, which we see that other side of Autumn in this episode. But I'm just going back a little bit. Who was she on the phone with? Now, I initially thought it was Billy because he said, I need you to come right away. And we see that the next person that came to her was Billy. Is it someone else? Is it someone from the future or the past? Let me know who you all theorize think she was on the phone with. But let's get back into talking about Autumn. Checked into a hotel, and then she marks herself with the same mark of the Abbott's family home. To me, that was almost, if you ever have seen Christopher Nolan's Memento, and when we saw Guy Pearce putting all the notes and symbols on him, like he wouldn't forget. Again, we know she has seizures, she has a bipolar disorder, but I don't know if she has any memory loss, because to me, it's almost like she put that on herself for she can't forget what the mark looked like. Because again, we have to remember, Royal burned all her belongings, her drawings, all her symbols and stuff like that. So I wonder if it's a significance of her like remembering the sign, or if she has to keep that on her. Still thinking about all that stuff. But again, Imogen Poots was fantastic this episode. Let me know why you all think that she left that mark on her as we get back into the conversation, seeing that other side of Autumn. And again, not seeing this side before because she's always been on her medication. This is the other side of Autumn with her. Again, we don't see her having seizures, but we see that bipolar disorder coming out because she is very kind of just like shaky and just very kind of antsy as she's having a conversation with Perry. Again, if you saw my review for episode 5, I really dove deep into the conversation that you all had in the comments regarding Autumn, Amy being the same person. It's not a coincidence that she spends the most time with Perry, who, if we're assuming that is Amy from the future, that's her dad. She can confide in her dad. She can trust in her dad, especially when it comes to these lines of dialogue here. As they're having the conversation, she tells him that all these things are connected with him, with her, and Rebecca, and that her recent trip into the woods provided her with clarity. And she wants Perry, if we're saying Perry, her dad, to take responsibility. And if he doesn't go to the police officers to tell them that she believes that Royal is responsible for the death of Trevor, she's going to do it, manipulating him, because we all know right now Perry is just the loss of his wife, Rebecca, which there's still a lot of theories and, things that I have about that particular situation going on. But he is at a state now where he just wants to protect, again, the family is the name of this episode. He wants to protect his family in her manipulating him. But again, I want to just applaud Imogen Poots, because when she was just kind of all over the place, talking about it's a new beginning and getting into the conversation with, how she wants this to be handled. I just thought Imogen Poots, and also Tom Pelphrey was great in that scene, but Imogen Poots to me really kind of stole this episode, and she was just fantastic through and through. Let me know what you all think about her kind of off the radar, kind of off the hinges type of performance in this episode. I thought it was fantastic. But let's get back into the episode. Back to Autumn as we wrap it up. She's back into her motel, and she has a surprise visit for Billy as he's questioning the significance of the void. Is it death? And she tells him, no, it's time, and it's a pattern, and it's all moving towards me. And again, I go back to that. Was it Billy that she was on the phone with? And what is the significance of Billy now being involved? Because again, he's not the leader of the family, but he is now, on the paper, he is the next kind of leader of the Tillerson family. And seeing this connection between singing Billy and Autumn, who's not the same off her meds, this would be a very interesting development here between these two characters. Let me know what you all think about that conversation. But let's wrap up the episode going back to the theme of family. Sometimes the truth can really hurt, and this scene was incredible. As Perry comes back home and he tells them that he confessed to everything, and this is where we see Rhett tells him, at all the kind of commotion going on, they're fighting back and forth, you're the reason that Amy doesn't have a mom. And notice every time someone brings up Rebecca, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, because we know what he did to Trevor. Now he's using that anger towards his own brother. He punches him in the face. We see Royals tries to get him off of him. Meanwhile, they're trying to get Amy out of the room. She ultimately does stay in the room, and they're just going back and forth. And we even see that as Tom Pelphrey, again, such an incredible actor, as Perry tells them why he did it, because obviously, Autumn told him that she was going to snitch. She was going to tell the police that it was, Royal that did it. So he, in his eyes, he's protecting his family. He's protecting his dad, his mom, obviously protecting his little brother, as well as his family with Amy. And this is when Royal As we saw Perry say last week or episode 5, what's in him is in me. They all have an anger problem. As we see, Royal just throws him against the glass in the cabinet, which unfortunately one of the glasses ricochets, hits little Amy in the head. I feel so bad for her because she just wants to find what's going on with her mom. She wants her family. Everyone's lying to her. She goes outside, starts crying. We see that the police are making their way towards them because obviously we know at this point in the episode, we saw that Perry went down to the police station to tell them the whole story, as he just mentioned in that previous scene. But this was interesting to me. And this goes back to a theory I mentioned in episode 5. We see the camera pans up as Amy's looking up, and then we see the camera pan down. It was very difficult for me to see it because the coloring on the scene, it was so dark. I didn't see any blood on Amy's head when she looked back down, which goes back to what I mentioned in my previous video. I feel like we're seeing different timelines with the similar circumstances, but they're just slightly altered because, and speaking of altered, if my theory is to be true, that version of the story, she didn't get hit in the head with a piece of glass. Again, I could be wrong, could just be the coloring, and could have just been too dark for me to tell, but I thought we were in another timeline with that situation. Let me know what you all think about that, and overall your thoughts on the episode. Again, I want to highlight the performance by Imogen Poots. Everyone was great, especially her and Tom Pelphrey going back and forth, him trying to calm her down. Of course, Josh Brolin was fantastic in the scene he has with Cecilia. And again, questions I have for you all: why did she let that dead cub bite her? What is the significance of that? Why does she have to keep that mark on her? Is it to remind her? Is it to keep her kind of in check on her mission, just to kind of keep everything in order? What do we expect with this relationship between her and Billy now? Patricia coming back, should she be leaving her boys without supervision, without her being there, and all the different things that we got there? Will Rhett choose Marie over his family? Whew, there's so much to look into. Let me know, again, your pros, your cons, your thoughts, your theories. These 2 episodes, to me, I know a lot of people might feel like they're not as exciting as the previous episodes, but to me, this was a great setup for the final 2 episodes. Kind of putting all the pieces to the puzzle together in regards to these different timelines, going back in the future, going to the past. So much to explore. I love talking about this show with you all, and I hope you all enjoy it as well. Before you all head out, do me a favor and make sure you like this review, share it, leave your thoughts in the comments, all your theories, predictions, all that stuff ahead. Let's have a conversation, and of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you again for watching this review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're staying safe, as you all can see on the screen now. Come and join the community, I should say. Check out my review for episode 5. Check out my other reviews for this fantastic show, and I'll catch you all on the next video.